ago, you heard my initial gut rant to the new Disney Plus / Hulu series Echo, which, if you've seen that video, you know I was not that impressed with it. Well, I decided to come back and break it down, and I decided to get my fellow Club Atlantis companion and right now my real life companion, Regina Huff, better known as TheNaturegirl30, to get her opinions on it, because she watched the series too. Then, and I'm giving a shout out to the channel Mary Marvelite, who actually did a video prior to the series, not on Echo the series, but on Echo the original comic character. And oh my God, if they would have even used I'm trying to save my comments for later in the video, but if they would have even used even a third of what the comic character was about, oh my God, this would have been so much better. I'm not going to say it would have been the greatest series ever in Marvel MCU history, but it would have been so much better. But anyway, I'm going to roll the intro, and then we're going to do, Nature Girl 30 is going to lead off. First, we're going to discuss Echo from the series versus Echo from the comics.
When it comes to the actual comic book character, I only know very little from what you showed me, and also from what I've seen in other videos about her character and the fact that she's able to mimic her opponent. Her opponent's move to an actual perfect Echo, and also the fact that she's not only well versed in the arts, and she has a very artistic mind, she's also able to read lips so well that she can actually speak the words coherently without it sounding like she has problems hearing. That is an incredible ability to have. And the fact that the producer, I don't know if she was a producer or a showrunner, said it was boring, that is somebody that really did not know anything about the character and does not know that having abilities like that can enhance a person. You don't have to be shooting laser beams from your arms and from your eyes and be flying all over the place and be going through buildings to be cool. There's lots and lots of things, lots of abilities a person can have that can make them superhuman, but also make them relatable. They could not do that here. This person was really out of touch. That producer, or if she was a showrunner, whatever, she was completely out of touch with anything comic book wise, because it showed in the series. Maya was an incredibly unlikable character. She blamed everybody for her problems. She nearly got her family killed when her family was reaching out, trying to make sure she was all right after her father's passing. Somehow, mysteriously, everybody in the entire town of Oklahoma, which a lot of reviewers kept getting wrong of where she was from, but I digress on that. The fact is, she went all the way back to Oklahoma to hide out. People were trying to reach out to her. She kept ditching them right and left, avoiding them for reasons we don't know. We don't know the connections between anybody there, especially Biscuits, which they heavily pushed to try to make us like him, even though I could not understand why he would ride or die with this chick when she did everything she could to get what she wanted, but didn't care if he lived or died. And that was the biggest flaw they had in the series. Maya was just not a very likable character. They keep saying, oh, she's amazing, she's hardcore, she's badass. I'm like, but what makes her that? The fact that she can fight, anybody can fight. In the Marvel Universe, anyone can fight. Give them powers, they'll somehow learn how to fight or do parkour or whatever. But the thing is, what makes her interesting? Nothing, really. There's really nothing that makes her interesting. And honestly, it was really sad because they could have done so much here. They created a whole different section of Marvel with Marvel Spotlight. This is where all of the grittiness, all of the gritty shows are gonna go. All the ones that's TVMA, we're just gonna go there. It wasn't even freaking TVMA. They lied about that. It was so light, it was ridiculous. It was not gritty dark like Daredevil. It was not gritty dark like The Punisher. And they kept pushing that, and it just wasn't at all. You didn't really see where Maya was going as a character, no arcs at all. You didn't see anything dark. You can probably say, well, the Kingpin's in there, so what? They neutered him down to nothing, and that really made me angry, because he's one of my favorite villains. But this series was a waste. Nobody really cared at all about the character and treating the characters right. Nobody cared about what the fans thought. Nobody cared about nothing. They spent millions on this thing. They had to put it out there. And that's all they wanted, was to check boxes. And that show was garbage for that. The comic book character is way more interesting than anything or any portrayal of Maya in the series. I would rather read the comics and watch that trash ever again.
And in all honesty, I didn't know much about Echo. I know she was a character from the comics. But then after I researched and discovered what the comic character was, the comic character was way cooler. Way cooler. And much more sympathetic and likable than this version. Now, Alaqua Cox, nothing against her. She was offered a role. I mean, I can't fault her for taking it. But the way they wrote her and had her directed was terrible. If they even used a quarter of what was in the comics, her character would have been way cooler and far more sympathetic. But instead, they went with this basically to check boxes, like my lady said. And I mean, it was just, oh boy, you can go back and listen to my rant on that. When She-Hulk is comparably better written, and we know that show was garbage, but when that was better written, you know you've done something wrong.
Say powers per se. I would rather just say abilities, because it's more like abilities than powers, because of the fact that she's able to read lips very well to where that it sounds like she can actually hear you when she can't. That's an incredible ability, as well as her being able to copy someone perfectly like an Echo. That is an amazing ability. The fact that she's able to be gifted in the arts is an amazing ability, and they should have enhanced that more in the series than what they did here. They were so focused on her being Native American. They were so focused on her being deaf. They were so focused on using American Sign Language, which I don't understand why. Like, they thought it was some kind of a foreign entity. They didn't focus on the very interesting parts of the character in the comics. Because I know Taskmaster pretty much has the same abilities. Why couldn't you do that here? You made Taskmaster a woman, so how come you can't do that with Maya? How come you actually could not make the ability she already had and put that into the series and make it something? Why couldn't you do that? Because what they did there, and I'm not gonna lie, how she got her powers was stupid. How she got amputee, had her leg cut off or her shin cut off was stupid. She got her powers from mystical tree people that in the center of the earth. We'd have no idea because they never explained it. We just saw the whole visuals and didn't really know what was what. That's how bad the editing was. And we honestly just did not know where she got her powers from and why was it just the women. They just didn't explain that either. And then the fact that all you saw was like these swirly glows in your hands that just made you efficient, stronger, what? Like, I don't know. Like, those powers were just really swirly, pretty glows, but that's all it was. She is not like she can lift an entire bus like Supergirl, or an entire train like Supergirl, or shoot laser beams from her eyes. So what's the whole point of the visuals if it's just gonna be nothing at the very end of the day? I mean, shoot, You and I both watched The Punisher, and that dude took a screwdriver to the foot and didn't flinch. He had no superpowers. He just had very, very, very high pain tolerance. The same thing with Daredevil. Daredevil can take several shots to the head from the Kingpin, fall off a building, and get back up limping, but is still alive. He has a high pain tolerance. And he has no mystical swirly crap to make him do all this stuff. No, they were just incredibly efficient, as well as having a high pain tolerance for what they went through. So yeah, you didn't have to have all these powers for her. It just didn't make any sense. She would actually be a very deadly assassin with the skill set she had. With her being able to mimic her opponent to pretty much to like almost perfect, and then being able to read lips so well that she can speak back. That's an amazing ability to have, and that's actually an ability that can make that person more human. Instead of giving them some mystical swirly stuff that looks like, I don't know, a cinnamon roll swirl in their hand. Like, come on. They really didn't have to do that.
I will also say this in terms of the Taskmaster. Yeah, in Black Widow, even though Taskmaster was originally a guy, they changed it to a woman. And yet Echo has a similar ability, but they take it out because the director thought it was lame. It wasn't lame for Taskmaster. Why is it lame here? And plus, I can understand wanting to pay nod to Native Americans, but to pay nod to just one tribe when there were several tribes that we know of in Native American history, and probably some that have been lost to history. I don't know. I just feel like, again, like I said earlier, this was just to check boxes. When the abilities of Echo were way cooler in the comics. We're talking about a character that was so cool, she was actually deemed worthy to house the Phoenix Force. You know, the same force that X-Men's Jean Grey had? That power. She was deemed worthy to bear that. Think about that, especially you longtime Marvel fans. Think about that for a second. I don't know.
Daredevil, the Kingpin, and Hawkeye in the comics, except for what you told me and what I've seen in the video, that they were lovers at one time, but they connected as allies here and there between her and Daredevil. But in the case in the series, we really don't know what their relationship is, because technically Daredevil shouldn't be there at all, because we only saw Echo during the time when she was in Hawkeye, and Hawkeye was Ronin around that time. Now, I know in the comics she actually was Ronin, while I don't know if it was in an alternate universe to where Hawkeye was Ronin. I don't really know the full extent of that, but I do know when it comes to the actual MCU, Ronin was actually there after the snap. When everyone was already gone, he was taking out drug cartels right and left, the Yakuza, everyone. When after the snap, when everyone was gone. And that was the time that she encountered Ronin for the first time, killing her father. So how in the world were you able to even encounter Daredevil when technically, unless they changed it, they might have. For Daredevil Born Again, there was actually a slight possible synopsis leak, that Daredevil came back after the snap and he had to adjust with what happened. So maybe they changed all that. So how was she able to encounter Daredevil first before Hawkeye? That's the one thing that didn't make any sense to me, because if she was a little girl in New York around that time, wouldn't Daredevil already be a grown man? The whole thing in itself didn't add up. The fact that they actually tried to insert the Netflix Marvel Street universe inside this series didn't make any sense. The timeline was completely off. And that's just really what messed it up with the whole Daredevil thing. Hawkeye was just a brief cameo. No relationship at all. Just the fact that she killed her father. And then just found out that it was Kingpin that ordered him to die. And the fact that I think from Hawkeye was just saying it was a Kingpin that wanted him dead. So there really wasn't much of a relationship there. The Kingpin relationship, in my humble opinion, should have been dived into a lot more in Echo because of the fact that she was raised by this man. And even in the comics, from what I've seen from the video you sent me, that her father knew, I think her father's name was Crazy Horse. The fact that Crazy Horse told Kingpin to take care of my daughter, and he took care of her. There should have been more of a stronger father-daughter dynamic between both of them. And I thought there was kinda in Hawkeye, except she had problems emoting even then, so you really couldn't tell exactly what she was thinking. I think she just kind of just tolerated him. That's kind of what I got from it when I saw Hawkeye. But the fact is, they should have dived a little bit more into the dynamic, had a little bit of conflict from the decision on killing him, even shooting him in the face. She had every right to be angry with him, but the fact that she missed, that should have been brought up. The fact that she missed should have showed the audience that she still loves this man, even though he betrayed her in the most extreme way. There should have been some type of conflict letting us know that he betrayed her by killing her father, but the fact that she saw him as a father, that was the reason why she missed. If they dived a little bit more into that to show that there was some type of father-daughter dynamic between the both of them, it would have made her more of an interesting character. But that wasn't being well written. The fact is, it makes you wonder whether or not she was able to emote that. But I'll digress on that. The thing is that I really wish they kind of dived a little bit more into Kingpin as well as into the relationship between him and Maya, and make it seem like it was more of a conflict to show that, yeah, she does love this man, but the fact that he killed her real father makes her wonder if she should hate him. I would have loved to see that in that series more than what I saw when they actually put it out.
Yeah, they didn't dive much into the relationship between these three characters at all. I know they didn't really with Hawkeye, other than the fact she thought Hawkeye's Ronan killed the father, when it was actually the Kingpin that set him up to look like he killed the father. In the comic books, interestingly enough, Hawkeye and Echo actually, for a time, actually had a relationship. They actually had a romance between the two. And as far as Daredevil goes, in the original comic series, Daredevil was the one set up to look like he killed Maya's father, only for her to discover during a fight a clue of who Daredevil's real identity was, which was, of course, Matt Murdock. Realizing Matt Murdock could not have killed her father because he would have been way too young to have done that, and realized that Wilson Fisk lied. And there was a hint of a romance there too, but by the time she came back to pursue it, Daredevil had already gotten involved with another woman. They have since been on and off again partners with each other since that time. Now, as for the Kingpin relationship, yes, I would have liked to have seen a deeper dive into their relationship, because there was definitely kind of a father-daughter relationship there. And Kingpin, in spite of himself, seemed to really care for Echo, even after what she did to him. So I would have liked to have seen a deeper dive into it. Of course, we didn't get that. Whereas in the comic books, he doesn't seem to be that quick to go after Echo that much, because a part of him still has a lot of sympathy, because he practically did raise her. It's the closest thing he's had to a child, other than his son, Richard Fisk, which I've never seen in any interpretation of him, other than Spider-Man the Animated Series. This is the closest thing to a child-father relationship that he's had. So it would have been an interesting deep dive. And the fact that Echo, when she could have finished him did not makes you wonder if part of her did not want to kill him despite what he did, because of the fact that he took care of her and raised her. But the relationship dynamic definitely could have benefited this series. But again, cash grab, check mark box.
I have no problem with her as a person, but I don't think she was the best person for the role. The fact is that they chose this person out of the disabilities that she had, but they didn't really bother to make sure that this person was able to fit the actual character. We all know in the comics she was not an amputee. The fact that they chose someone who was an amputee, and as well as being deaf, they didn't really think about that. They just thought about checking off boxes, which is a very big problem, not only in Hollywood, but also in Marvel right now. She had problems with emotion. She had problems with emoting. We really didn't know what she was thinking. We didn't know why she did what she did, because they was just too heavy on using American Sign Language. And American Sign Language is good using sparingly, but when you use it all the time, not only does it slow the pacing down, but it kind of cripples the emotion of the scene. And I think that was the biggest problem they had. I don't think she was really good for the role, even though she has the look of Echo and the fact she has a heritage. She has a heritage background, as well as her being deaf and also an amputee. I mean, she has the look, she just doesn't fit. And they could have found somebody else to actually fill that role. And I know that, and I just saw a few reviews, especially about the fight scenes. The fight scenes in itself was very, very clunky at best, but I honestly found out on Instagram that she had a baby 2 months ago, and the fact that she was able to do those fight scenes at all after having her son is phenomenal. But to be honest with you, I still consider that the fault of Disney. No woman who just had a kid should be doing fight scenes like that if you want it to be crisp, as well as nothing that looks sluggish or lazy. And it's not really her fault. She just had a kid. But you need to hire somebody that's able to do that work and not have so much pressure on them to be perfect. I wish they did hire somebody else for the role. I don't think it was fair for her to actually go into working after having a baby that's about 2 months old as of now. But yeah, they should have picked somebody else for this. And yeah, people are saying she has that body positivity look. She just had a kid. She's not gonna be rail thin after popping out a child, guys. Like, come on.
Yeah, and that's pretty much my view. I blame the showrunners, I blame the director, I blame the writers, and Disney and Marvel Studios. Basically, anybody that was over this project. I don't blame the actors, especially Alaqua Cox. I don't blame her. And I'm with Regina, and excuse the pun, I echo her sentiment. The fact that she was able to do any of that stuff at all after having given birth is remarkable. That's very remarkable, and that's very commendable. I mean, I will not knock the talent. And hopefully in the future she has better work that showcases her skills. But this ain't it. This ain't it. I agree. They should have got someone else to do this. And for those who say, well, they need a deaf person. No, they didn't. They didn't need a blind person to play Daredevil. Just saying. They didn't need an actual soldier to do the Punisher. I mean, I'm just being for real. They didn't need a real detective or PI to do Jessica Jones. I mean, that's what actors are there to do. Alaqua Cox, all due respect to her, and this is nothing against her, I think she was just there to check boxes, just like Regina said. I know I've repeated myself through this video about it. I've been mostly letting her talk, but pretty much her views is pretty much mine. And to close out this video, because this video is taking a little bit long, probably longer than this subject deserves, I'm going to let her close out.
The overall view of this show, it was garbage. There wasn't really many redeeming qualities for it, except for the fact the intro was cool. They definitely took a few steps from Daredevil, the artistic way of how they did their intro. They definitely took a lot of things from Daredevil, but they just didn't execute it very well. I honestly did like the yeahs burning when they had that in the intro. That was pretty cool, but everything else was just messed up. The editing was incredibly choppy to where you never really knew what was going on. It was just poorly done. They really did mess up the Kingpin a lot, especially for that finale, which was garbage. They really did not try. They didn't bother to try. Whether Alaqua Cox did her best to try to make the scenes work, and honestly, hearing Vincent D'Onofrio in his interview that he had, saying that as an actor he has to do his best to try to make the script work, he's right. He was the only reason why I would watch this show, because the Kingpin is probably one of my favorite villains, but not even he could salvage this. This show is worth not watching at all, not supporting. And I know a lot of people say, well, yeah, it's great that you have a deaf person there and an amputee. But I actually did send this to Ervin when somebody on Twitter saying, the first amputee in Marvel, y'all forgot about Bucky, right? The fact that he had an arm that was made in Wakanda, y'all forgot he was an amputee too. He didn't lose a shin, he didn't lose his entire foot, but he lost an arm, so that does count, right? But other than that, they need to focus more on making a good story, creating a good character that happens to have this, instead of that being the overall reason why the person is there. That's where they went wrong. They need to focus on making a good story, having a good character, and giving you a reason to watch it. They really do need to start back from scratch, but I doubt they will. They're going to probably keep losing money until they just give up.